to go out into the world to bring the story of God's love. Each one of us belongs to that great story. And each one of us has a story. Whether it be a story of longing, a story of desiring to be loved and to love in return, desire to be touched by God in a special way. We each have a story, and somebody somewhere needs to hear our story. And so that's why we're called to go out and not be afraid. Do not be afraid to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Because you don't know how it could touch someone's heart, how it could call someone into the love of God, or to call someone back into his family of love. We each have a story, and that's why at XLT it's so important for us to have a witness speaker to share their own story, because there may be somebody out there who needs to hear it at that moment in their lives. And so I want to introduce to you Erick, Ybarra, who is joining us from Incarnation Church, who's friends with our very own Brandon Vaught, who has invited Erick to join us this evening to share his story. Erick is a husband to Victoria, who has 3 young children, one who Evan is here today joining his dad. And he has a story of his faith journey, the bumps along the way and the way God has called him back to the Catholic faith. And so, in the spirit of St. Mary Magdalen, would you please join me in giving him a warm welcome? Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a lot to say, and I have to aim for like 4 minutes to make the 10 minutes that I'm giving. So pray for me. My name is Erick Ybarra. I'm 28 years old. I have 3 boys, 1 7, 2 1. We live here in Winter Park. I was born in Miami-Dade County. I was brought up in South Florida until I came up to Orlando from the university in 2005. And my upbringing was Catholic. I was baptized in the Archdiocese of Miami. Received First Communion at St. Patrick's Cathedral. There were times where I had a sense of God when I was young. I couldn't help it, really. My grandmother put a huge picture of Jesus in my bed. And it was very weird because I always thought the eyes were following me. I never had that feeling growing up. So I always thought, okay, my room's not the place to do anything with that. But we went to Mass often, but it began to wane off and become a very nominal spiritual life. When I hit my teenage years, I began to have a lot of intellectual problems with the existence of God. And it was really prompted by my coming awareness to things in life that we deal with. Evil, my original family, my mother and father. I never met my father, and my mother was a single mom for a while. But my family, I come from a twice broken family, and in the teenage years, I just really started to put into a delusional objection why God doesn't exist. And so when I came up here to university, I brought that with me. And I had an anonymous roommate system at UCF where you move in, you don't know who's going to be your roommate. And the first day I got there was Bibles all over the other half side of the room, so I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But this roommate was a godsend. He introduced to me the objective reasons for God's existence, the historical reliability of the Bible, the resurrection of Jesus. And a lot of these things that I doubted, I started to see that it was reasonable to believe these things. So I had a really poor worldview in my teenage years. It was very dark and cold. I basically spent a lot of time thinking about life, and I saw that it really ended in total annihilation and decomposition of the human nature and person. And I know a lot of people around me were able to accept that and still dress their life up to be happy in short stages. It wasn't good enough for me. If I knew I was going to die and everyone was going to die, it kind of affected me. I wasn't able to cope with that too well. So when I started to learn about the resurrection of Jesus and the existence of the miraculous, and that God actually came to this earth and revealed himself, hope and life flooded into my heart, and I was radically changed. That was in 2005, and at that point I entered into pretty radical conversion and began reading the Bible and praying and sharing my faith. But just like all of us, we have a dark chapter in our life. And after about 5 years, I re-entered the life of sin. And it was a pretty serious event because I had known so much at that point. And I really did turn my back on Christ with full knowledge. Some of us here might know what that's like. And it's a pain to carry, even when you get reconstructed. After being in sin again as an adult, God gave me a wonderful gift. And the gift was that it began to be more difficult to be in sin than to not be, than to be holy. Now, I don't mean by that it was difficult for me to sin. It was very easy. What I mean is, like King David says in the Psalms, your bones feel like they're breaking. After a while, when you're running away from God, God lets you choke on it enough so that you see that sin is not what you were made for. And I was brought to that torturous feeling, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I came back, and it was a pretty serious moment in my life. I had a lot of doubts about the Catholic faith. I had been in some Protestant churches for a while before that. God brought me to reading history and watching Marcus Grodi journey home on YouTube and listening to Scott Hahn and some of these other biblical apologists. And I knew I had to come back to the Catholic faith where the fullness of the truth was. And I met Brandon Bott in that process. I sat down with him at the dailies on 436, like how many times? Spent hours. And he really helped me. The Bott family really helped me see the truth of the Catholic faith and that I needed to be back to the Eucharist. And so my journey is really just the story of God's reconstructed love, taking what's broken and restoring it to fullness. And it's his way of loving us out of disobedience. And we're all called to be saints, and this is a wonderful gift that we have in the Catholic Church. We are taught that conversion is a painful process. When you look at the crucifixion, it is a difficult experience for our Lord. And anything that's difficult in life it takes a lot of courage. And Jesus said we have to follow him, pick up our own cross. And I'm in this process now. God's reconstructing me. I've got detour signs all over me. Some days I really look back. There's a lot of delays. But God's really changed me from the inside out. And where I'm at right now is in the process of trying to create an evangelization apostolate in Orlando, sort of like a street ministry, going out and talking to people and trying to engage people with all the doubts and the miseries and the problems that people have. They need to see people who are willing to just listen to them and talk to them about the faith. And have a passion for theology. Hopefully God will open up a door for me to get some accreditation. I'd love to teach the Catholic faith. And I'm also going to be a captain of a new apostolate called the Troops of St. George. It's kind of like a kids' Boy scouting program where fathers and sons get together and they go out and just do a lot of hunting and fishing and stuff like that. So, and that's it. Thank you guys so much for your time. And let's just continue pursuing our Lord, letting Him reconstruct us.
Will pursue us no matter where we are in life. He will not let us go. He is always going to desire our hearts until we turn to Him. But He'll do it in a gentle way. He's not going to force Himself into our hearts. But He's always there. He's a God of love and a God of mercy. And knowing that we need Him, that He promised that He would be with us always until the close of the age. And so, as Catholics, we believe that's absolutely true in the Blessed Sacrament. And so, as we prepare our hearts and prepare this time in this sacred space for adoration, I just ask you to call to mind all that God has promised.